All right, everyone. Let's go ahead and get started with this one. If you still need help, this is your last opportunity. All right. So this is law of science word problems. You've had this for about 2 days now. So time to pay the piper, right? And time for all the chickens to come home and roost. All right. So we already did number one on the together. Okay. We had to use a law of sines, and we have to use SOHCAHTOA with a right triangle trigonometry. All right, number two, two towers A and B are located 10 miles apart. Right, they use the direction of the other towers as 0 degrees. Not sure. I think maybe there's a typo there. Rangers at fire tower A spots fire at 42 degrees, and Rangers at fire tower B spots the same fire at 64 degrees. How far from Tower A is the fire to the nearest temp? Okay. Oh, okay. I know what they mean by 0 degrees. I actually haven't read this in a little bit of time, so that means that they're straight across or horizontally from each other, right? That's all I mean. All right, so let's look at what we need to do. And so, how far is Tower A from the fire? Okay, so all we really want is we want to find out this right here. We'll call this X. Okay. So looks like we have two angles. We can actually find the third angle. We start with 180 degrees. We and we subtract away the 42 degrees at tower A and subtract away the 64 degrees at tower B. And that'll give us 72 degrees at the top where the fire is. So 74 degrees. Okay? And because now we have the angle in its opposite side, so I can set that up as 10 over sine of 74 degrees. Remember, we're using the law of sine for this assignment. And then that's going to be the same or equivalent to, and then this other is going to be the angle and the opposite side right there. So the side is x, which we don't know, and the angle is 64. So we're going to write it as sine 64 degrees, right? To solve it, multiply both sides by sine of 64, and you will end up with x equals 10 times sine 64 degrees over sine 74 degrees. Okay, so in your calculator, you're going to go ahead and do 10 sine 64, close that off, divided by sine 74. Right, and before I do anything, before I hit enter, I'm going to make sure that I'm in degree mode, which I am. So I'm going to go ahead and exit out and hit enter now. And that's going to give me about 9.35. Okay. And that's all I really need. It's not asking about how far is the fire away from tower B or whatnot. So, and direction says nearest tenth of a mile. So that means one decimal place. Okay. So my answer is going to be 9.35. So that's going to be rounded up to 9.4. So this right here is going to be 9.4 miles. And this looks pretty close to this length, right? I mean, it's a little shorter than 10 miles. That's 10. And this is 9.4. So you know what? I'll buy that. I'll believe that. So, okay. Number three. This is going to be like number one. By the height of the tree to the nearest foot. Okay, so you have to do some subtraction because you need to figure out this inside angle here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do 180 take away 75. That's going to give me 105 as the inside angle. And because I know that, I can figure out this top angle. So I'm going to go 180 take away 105, take away 45. And that will give me my top angle of 30. So it means that this top angle up all the way up here is 30 degrees. Okay. Okay. And now I can utilize this angle and its opposite side of 20 using the law of sine. So I'm going to start with 20 over sine of 30 degrees. That's going to be equivalent to, and then I need to do one more relationship. You can use anything you want. I'm going to go ahead and just utilize this outside angle or outside side. I'm just going to call this X out here. So I'm going to utilize this angle along with its opposite side. So that's going to be X over the sine of 105. Okay, and again, same setup. I'm going to go ahead and multiply both sides by sine of 105, and my X is going to be equal to 20 times sine of 105 divided by sine of 30 degrees. Okay, so that's all I'm going to write down. Or type in 20 sine 105, close that parentheses, divided by sine of 30 degrees. Okay, and I get that X is 38.63. And I'm going to actually, because I'm not done, I'm going to go ahead and write in a bunch of numbers. Okay, so all that work, yes, I know that was not too bad, but all that work to get 38 is that side, 0.63703305. Okay, and now I'm going to look at the bigger triangle, which is this one right here. This one with a 45-degree angle, and the right triangle right here. Okay, this is going to tree, so it's going to be straight up and down. And now I can use my SOHCAHTOA, because now I am dealing with a right triangle. I can use Pythagorean theorem, and I can use SOHCAHTOA, or right triangle trigonometry. Okay, and I need to find out how tall the tree is. I'm going to call this Y. So I would need, so from my 45 degrees, I would need the opposite, and I would need the hypotenuse. So opposite and the hypotenuse, I'm talking about sine. So I'm going to start off with sine 45 degrees equals opposite, which I don't know. I'm going to call that Y, over the hypotenuse, which is 38.63703305. Okay, and I'm going to multiply both sides by that number. So I'm going to get Y equals 38.63703305. And I'm using all these numbers because I'm not quite done with my answer, so I'm not going to round it up. I'm just going to use the whole entirety of it. That times sine of 45 degrees. And I have that number right here on my calculator. So I just have to take that and multiply it by sine of 45. And that will give me 27.3. So Y is equal to 27.3205, blah, 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 right? And then now I can round it off to the nearest foot. Nearest foot is going to be a whole number, so 27.3. So I'm going to say Y is going to be equal to 27 foot or feet. Okay. And actually, I don't like the equal. I'm going to go ahead and use approximately. So we're going to say the height of the tree is approximately, that little squiggly, 27 feet. Okay, so that's the answer right here. And this was the answer up here. Okay, that's number 3. Number 4, we're looking for D. And if you want to just work with D itself, okay, you got to work with this triangle here. Or if you want to work with D itself, you got to work with this triangle here. And you may very well have to, right? But you don't know anything about any of those sides, either one of those small triangles. But if you start off looking at the big picture, and that's this big triangle here, you actually have one of the sides. You have 20, right? And you have 38, you have 49, and that means that you can figure out the top angle. The top angle is 180, take away 38, take away 49. So top angle is 93 degrees. So the whole top angle is 93 degrees. And when I have that, I can now utilize the law of sine because I have an angle and its opposite side. So I'm going to start off with 20 over sine of 93 degrees. That's going to be equal to, and I can utilize either the 38 or the 49. Okay. If I don't want to do that, I will have to look at each individual side here. And this would be, we could call this x, and then this side right here, we can call this 20 minus x. And together they'll make 20. But that's if we didn't know anything else about it. Okay. But we do know some stuff, and that's why we're using the law of sine, because we have the whole side of 20. So we can compare that big triangle to itself and utilize in the law of sine. Right. And then I'm going to go ahead and say, you know what, I like this angle on the right hand side, or the triangle. So I'm going to go ahead and compare this to this unknown quantity here. So I'm going to go ahead and call this one x. Okay. So I'm going to write this as x over sine of 49, because I'm utilizing the 49 degree angle. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and solve that. Multiply both sides by sine of 49. So I will get x equals 20 times sine of 49 degrees over sine of 93 degrees. So I would type in the calculator 20 sine 49, close our parentheses, divided by sine 93. That's going to give me 15.11. Right? So that means that my side right there is 15.11. And because I'm not quite done, I'm going to use all of these numbers. Okay, so all of that work, 15. So that side is 15.11490606. Okay, that whole side. Okay, and now I can go ahead and focus my attention on this one. And I know that this is my D right here. And because this is a 90 degree angle, I don't need to mess with the X and the 20 minus X, just, how much each individual piece is, right? I just need to do a SOHCAHTOA, because now I know from my 38 degrees, I have an opposite, which I'm trying to look for, and I have a hypotenuse. So opposite and a hypotenuse, we looked at it on the previous page. Where is it at? Opposite and hypotenuse, we're looking at sine. So I'm going to be utilizing sine 38 degrees equals opposite, which is D, and hypotenuse, which is 15.11490606. To solve for D, I need to multiply both sides by 15.11490606. So it's going to be D equals 15.11490606 times sine 98. Sorry, not 98. 38 times sine of 38 degrees. And that's what D is. So I already have 15.119411490606. I wrote that wrong. That should be a 6, by the way. But anywho, I'm just going to go ahead and take that and multiply it by sine of 38. And that'll give me my D, which is 9.305. To the nearest tenth of a mile, that means that 1 decimal place. So my D, so I'm going to go ahead and fix that now. My D is now, I'm going to put that in red, 9.3. So D equals 9.3 miles. Okay, and that's my answer. Okay, last one. Let's see. Triangle DEA is similar to triangle CBA. All right, so I'm gonna put down a couple things I know. Okay. So the way that we read this is D to E to A. Right, and then they're calling this C to B to A. So that means that if they're going in the same order, that means that 55 is angle B, 55 is the same as angle E, 55. Okay. And so that's the only thing that you need to know, because in that order, those two angles match up. Yep. Okay. And also, one more thing is, because these lines cross, that means that on top right here, this angle is also 80 degrees, because these are vertical angles. And then by default, you can figure out the last one. Find DE to the nearest whole number. So I'm just gonna focus in on that top triangle. So I'm gonna put that in red so that I can know that I'm focusing in on that. And I do have my angle and my opposite side. So I'm gonna start with that. So I'm gonna start with 7, which is my side, over my sine of my angle 55, and those two belong together, because that's from what the law of sines tell you. And then I need to find DE, which is, I'm gonna put in as X there. So I do know that the law of sine says that the X and the 80 belong together as a ratio. So it's gonna be equal to X over the sine of 80. Okay, so I don't even need the bottom triangle. All I needed was that 55 to help me with that 55 over there. Okay, that's all I needed the bottom triangle for. Okay, now I'm just going to solve this. Multiply both sides by sine of 80, and I will be left with X equals 7 times sine of 80 degrees over sine of 55 degrees. Okay, so in my calculator, I'm going to go ahead and do 7 sine 80, close that off, divided by sine 55, close that off as well. Okay, and it's 8.41559. And because I'm done, because now I found DE, I'm going to go ahead and round it to the nearest whole number. So the whole number for this is 8.41559. Whole number is 8. The 4 is not big enough to round the 8 to 9, so I would say my answer is 8. And there's no units on that. And that's my answer. Yeah, or I can say DE equals 8. All right, folks, that's a wrap. Appreciate you stopping by.